Hello and welcome to Stammer on the Everyday Show with me, John. Oh, how are we all doing today? I'm a little tired, so I might even yawn today. So I did a study over the last couple of days in Bangor with the university. That was really cool, and all to do with people who have a stammer. A kind of link between kind of how we talk. Went in an MRI and basically looking at kind of the brain. Did a speaking test in there as well, and what was really cool, took a segment of my tongue as I was saying words, so you can see that in real time. And this is one of the first of its kind, and it links to your body as well. So they're looking for people who kind of run and who have a stammer as well. So I got hooked up to all these kind of spots. So if anyone knows motion capture and kind of how you've seen it in video games and films, and they stick all the dots on your legs and that kind of stuff, and then you basically run and then they capture all that information. So thank you to the team there. It was an absolute amazing experience, and I kind of loved every second of it. So, anything that I can do to promote that and kind of help in that cause, I think is a great cause. If anybody is interested in it, particularly female, because there's a lot of males that have come up for the study. They need looking for female women who have a stammer and are prepared to run. Now the running bit is not hard at all. I'm going to have a video coming out just to show you what that's like. It is a lot of fun. The team now are fantastic. They put you at ease. Really great. I'm a little bit tired. Didn't get back until late kind of last night, and I kind of came in, went straight to bed, up, take the kids to school this morning. So I haven't really had tons of sleep, as you can probably tell by the bags in the eyes. So there's a poll in there, and really the title of the video is how you feel about having a stammer. Now I've made some notes as to, I guess, some of the topics or what I want to talk about in regards to sort of how people feel about their stammer. So on the way back in the car on the 5-hour trip, so there was a lot of time to think about this. So kind of when I think about topics for the show, I kind of have a bit of a list, and I kind of try to go through and make the topics kind of about stammering, and maybe some of the things that we all talk about, and maybe it's some of the things that we all think about. So one of the things I think particularly yesterday, and some of the questions that were asked, because there were two studies and there's another study on basically a metronome and kind of speech patterns in regards to that. So one of the questionnaires is, or one of the questions on that was they're trying to understand is how people feel about the stammer, and does that kind of impact speech patterns. So which kind of has kind of led me to ask this question today. So then it's made me think about the journey that I've had. I'd be really interested to understand your journey, whether you're kind of at the kind of beginning, so you're younger than me. I'm now in my 40s. I'm 42. So I've kind of been very lucky, and through hard work as well, to kind of get fluency. So how I feel about my stammer now is not the same as how I felt about it when I was in my teenage years, 20s and 30s. So how I feel, or how I felt about my particular stammer, I am a covert stammerer, which basically means that I try to substitute words. It's a habit, something I'm trying to get out of, hence why the live shows, because it means that you can see me if I do stammer, and it's good for me to practice speaking, and it's good for me to get comfortable with me, and kind of try to get a positive attitude towards kind of myself. So kind of thinking about the journey and where you guys are. So thinking about the lifespan, really. So I guess for me, when I was younger, probably in my early teenage years. It was something that you kind of have to get an understanding of, because not a lot of your peers around you. I knew somebody else on my street, as it was, who had a stammer, and again, even then, the differences in my stammer at that point, and his, I could never really I could never understand why I stammered, but in a different way to this person. So I kind of, lots of embarrassment, and I think that the reasoning for that is a couple of things. One, therapy wise, I didn't have any therapy, so I kind of always thought it was a little bit of taboo, really. And the time where like late 80s, 90s, where stammering was definitely more of a joke. Obviously not for people. So there are people who still strived for acceptance and equality, even then. So I think the prevalence of stammering, I think, is coming in line with probably the mental health aspect now. And people are definitely more aware, and I think definitely more kind of open to that. So stammering in my 20s, I found it really, again, embarrassing, because again, you get into the world of work now. Really, I think typical, and you can educate me on this and tell me the jobs that you do or the jobs that you don't. I sort of landed in jobs, and education wise, I probably stopped myself from getting a better education. I was definitely smart enough, but just due to the stammering and people's reactions, or my perceived to that, kind of always kind of led me to push away from that effectively. And then into the world of work, then that's when the covert stammering really happened, and my relationship there started to develop into a negativity, and really kind of trying to kind of hide away and not accepting that stammer. Now, looking back, I probably had an impact on my mental health, in terms of, every time I kind of had a stammer, I would definitely beat myself up, and it was completely wrong. I would never admit it, never tell anybody that I had a stammer. So certain situations, I would probably look like I was different, because, for example, conversation at work, and then if I knew I was going to come up to a word in which I stammered on, and again, confidence wise, I would completely shift the conversation from one to another, just so I wouldn't stammer. So people probably thought I was probably a little bit strange, but this was me trying to hide that, more so away from me, because it's something I couldn't accept. And then I got to a point whereby I kind of needed a career, because I couldn't just sit in a job that I could do. Did I like the profession? So I fell into accountancy, and as much as I kind of love that, because I am a bit of a tech geek and a little bit of a geek, I like numbers, and I like to analyze stuff. And I think the reasoning for that for me is because it's something that I could do on my own. Numbers kind of, and that kind of stuff became sort of my friends, which sounds really sad, but it's something that I could do, and there wasn't necessarily a lot of talking involved. It was just me and the numbers. So I kind of resonated towards that. Now I got to my 30s, and what really shifted my mindset was having kids. And I always felt that I needed to become a different person, because I needed to speak up for my children. And at that point, that's when I started to accept the stammer. I would always still try to hide it, but there was this acceptance, and there was this shift in thinking that now I'm a dad, I need to push myself to improve my stammer and just kind of try to improve. So I kind of started to accept it a little bit. And then with acceptance, again, I wasn't really in the stammering community, stammering world. I kind of always kept myself separate from that, not because I didn't respect people who had a stammer. This was more about me not accepting. So I started to kind of accept it. And then when I did that, I found my fluency increased. I was more open to conversations. I was more open to people, to let people in. And then fluency came in, and I probably hit about 35. And that's when I started to really think about this and kind of, I don't know if people kind of really like having a stammer, but I kind of started to embrace it. And as I say, I think acceptance definitely helps. And then I kind of got a job and kind of got myself out of my comfort zone and kind of started to kind of work more with clients, doing presentations. The job that I did made me have to kind of talk in a meeting. Now, people take this, I think, people don't necessarily think what it's like for people who have a stammer, that standing up there with this fear of talking and then stammering on a word. People who are fluent stammer, but I think some of it, and I want to choose a correct word there. I think some people potentially have PTSD. There's particularly if they have a bad experience. I also think that people have anxiety, and I think the anxiety is exacerbated by your own mind because you overthink things. And even though it's quite clear that when people talk and they're thinking about words, they sort of have a stammer because we do it frequently. I think we think about it a little bit more. So I think my perception was always nerves, even when I didn't feel like I had nerves. People would always just assume that. And the easiest thing for me I should have done is talk about it a little bit more and try to educate people. So fast forward now that I'm older and fluency is definitely up. So how I feel now is acceptance. I talk about it now as something I never did. And the fact that I'm doing what I do now is in total acceptance. To have a stammer, it's very subjective. I think what brings me joy, and I think that is whether you dislike your stammer or whether it brings you joy. What brings me joy now is to see other people. I think the relationship that I have with it is a positive one now, because I feel an obligation, whether it's my role or not. I think as many people who speak up about it as they possibly can and start to kind of get involved in studies that I was in, I think is only a positive thing for the world of people who have a stammer. And as much as it is a difficult thing, I think that the more people talk, I think the more people become normalized. So how I feel about my stammer is I feel proud to be part of a community now whereby people are starting to come out, people are starting to promote this. And I think it's really important to be positive as much as there is still stigma attached to it. I think that we need to change the thought. So I saw something on Facebook, and this is not to call anybody out on this. This is just something that I've seen and I responded to. Is there was an iceberg of people that sort of have a stammer, and then there was the kind of above the line where the top of the iceberg that people see is X, Y, and Z, and then beneath it there was probably about 20 points. Now, all of these points are are, I would say, are valid points, and I think people do definitely feel a lot of the things that was said there. I'd love to put it in the description, but I can't see it now. But one of the problems that I have with that is the negativity. So there was nothing positive about that. There were a couple of really strong messages and points on there in regards to suicide, in terms of the ideation of suicidal thoughts and what people think. Now, there was a percentage on there that was probably about 63%. Somebody was saying, and I think this was run through Chat GBT as well, which I'm not a fan of that, because it can skew stats, it can skew points, and it will only put points through that you ask it to do. So it's not subjective enough to give you a balanced view. So there was only one side of the negativity, and I think the problem with this is that if you are negative, like I was for the longest time, this only feeds into that. It feeds into the stereotype for people that don't have a stammer. I feel like it really feeds into that. So I think there is still a unbalanced view within the community itself. I think there's an unbalanced view in people who don't have a stammer within the media as well. And I think this is one of the key points to this, is I think how we feel, or how people feel about the stammer, or how you feel about your stammer, is based on, I think, your experience. I think it's based on kind of positive and negative experiences. I don't think there's enough literature. I don't think there's enough studies. I don't think there's enough visuals, so media-wise, things like this, for people to get a different view, a balanced view on both sides. I think negativity needs to be pushed into people having a positive view, but also at the same time, I think people who have a positive view and already have a positive view, or people who are fluent and forget what it's like to be in that dark space, I think there's definitely a point there for people to still be aware that there are people out there who are in this despair place. I think that's a very strong word, or people who don't know where to turn, and people who still need help. So I think it's still a talking point in the community of 81 million people. That I think both sides and all points of view need to come together to, I think, shift a mindset, hopefully towards the positive mindset. And I think we definitely have a obligation to educate and mentor people that have a negative view of having a stammer. And the only other point I wanted to mention, really, in regards to people that have a stammer and their opinions and their feeling about their stammer, is cure and fluency. Now, what I mean by that is that do people have the opinion that there's a cure for stammering? Do people are striving for fluency? Now, the study that I was involved in is not looking for a cure, and I think that needs to be. I think that needs to be said. I was sent a message, and again, really interesting, whereby there's a not a it's a kind of a way of life, if you like. It's called something. I can't think now, and I was told that this has cured, and that's not my word. That's kind of their word. That 80% of people that use this methodology, that use this way of thinking, in their experience, cures up to 80% of people. Now, the problem, or not the problem as such, but my thinking on this is that I think it's a very not a subjective enough viewpoint. I think it's a very misleading viewpoint on this. I'm not a fan of the word cure. I think it is all about fluency. I think it's trying to get people fluent first of all, and not getting people to be cured. I'd love to be told what a cure is for stammering. Um, when I hear cure, I hear pills. I hear like I hear medical. I hear a medical intervention like an operation or a pill, which I would do not agree with. So I'm not the biggest fan of cure. I'm not the biggest fan of prevention. I think it is about fluency. I think it's getting people to a place whereby they get fluency. Now, some people have a stammer, and some people then suddenly do not have a stammer and they're fluent for a long time. And somebody that I was speaking to actually made an interesting point that if you have a stammer and then you suddenly don't have a stammer and you're cured, is there an argument to say that you don't have a stammer? Is there an argument to say that that is not a stammer? Now, again, subjective point is I don't want to say if there's I don't want to break this down into people who have fluency to non-fluency, people who have a true stammer, people that stammered and then were fluent or cured in their mind. So I'd like, if you can, to let me know what you think about this cure fluency of people that have a stammer. And just to let me know in the chat, just to let me know your thoughts really on the subject of how you feel about your stammer, how you perceive yourself, and do you think there's a stammering? Do you just strive for fluency, or if you have had a stammer, are you free of a stammer? Are you fluent? Do you see yourself as cured? I think these are all conversations I think we need to have. And if you are fluent and you've been fluent for a really long time, I'd love to know what you did to get fluent, and if it's something that you feel that people would listen to, you feel that it would help people, because I conversation and as many viewpoints as we can get on this, the better. So for those of you who have watched, those of you who haven't, and hopefully you will watch this at some point, thank you so much. Please don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe, mainly because if this gets stammering out there, subscribing does help me out because it just means that I can make content, I can make live shows, even though my camera's now started to pan. It just really helps me to kind of help make the content, to know that people want to hear this content. Even if people don't, I'm still going to make this content, even if it's just for me to just talk at me, and it helps me out as well. So thank you for watching. Thank you for watching live. It does mean a lot to me. It does mean a lot to this after the event. Thank you again. And don't forget to comment me some of the questions that I've asked. That will be fantastic. And I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.